So pardon me if you will, but I take issue with a God that don't look like me dictating the discourse in an age of virtual reality. Globalization, corporate commodification, genetic engineering, stem cell clone sheep, it seems that a bit of that weird science has leaked into my classroom. I mean, what's with all the cross-pollination, huh? As recently as October of 2009, a group of teachers imported from the Philippines pressed charges for being treated like and paid no better than indentured servants. My only question, the hell were they doing here in the first place? I'm here, more than apt and completely capable of reaching and teaching children to look just like I did 20 years ago and now walk a similar path. But in the game of political Ponzi that is post-Katrina New Orleans, it's about more than books and study, baby. Education is big business. Unions are shut down wholesale. Veteran teachers fired before they can cash in on their pensions. God forbid, health care, prison beds. Prison beds are forecast based on the amount of fourth grade students at reading level. Does it get more insidious than that? In some of his famed final words, infamous economist Milton Friedman went on record as saying Katrina was a tragedy, but at the same time an opportunity, yes, to radically reform the New Orleans public school system. That's bullshit, old white man elitist ease for wipe clean the slate of New Orleans public schools and replace them with independent charters. Want to know who the charters answer to? Just follow the money. Probably the same old high-end, usually right-wing think tanks that design a test to leap over our kids' heads while they steadily claiming they won't leave them behind. Same good old boys and money banks that kept your great-great-great-great-grandmothers in chains. So what's to be made of all this good-hearted altruism, huh? Penance for ancestral pains? I mean, it's like giving a Band-Aid to an AIDS patient. Good luck covering the wounds. Hope this cheap amalgamation of gauze and adhesive tape don't slip like sloppy seconds over the festering sores. Good luck with the facts. Hope the textbook prognosis works out for you, little buddy. Perhaps it'll plaster perfectly over the pathos that we supplied and surplus these wounds, my child. They are age-old, even older than the wilted buildings we house them in, but sometimes, as though the buildings were symptoms themselves. The chipping of lead-based painting on 80-year-old walls, why it sounds like, it looks like broken English. A barbed wire vice grip on a muzzled mouth, a poisonous lamina atop petrified wood. Our indigenous breath once blew linguistic form from a shapeless void. Now we're painted a plethora of platitudes, minstreled and misnomers, gifted and thug, special needs, troubled child, our children. Our children are a poison harvest ripened out of season. Who will tend this garden better than those that sprouted from it themselves?
Welcome. Welcome to the closing plenary of Unrig the System Summit. I'm Elisa Jagerson. I'm a board member of RepresentUs. I have been blown away by this weekend, by what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've learned. Yeah. The thing that I keep coming away with is you are all doing such amazing work across our beautiful country, and I have this sense of you as as we're trying to cross this ocean, as the sort of relentless rowers pulling with both hands on the oar, and as the wayfinders navigating our way to the shore. And I have this overwhelming sense of the emergence of a wave, that we're coming across and up to the crest of a wave, and that perhaps together we can ride it into shore.
I'm Todd DiPaolo. I'm a co-chair of the board of directors at RepresentUs, and I hope everyone is excited coming out of this weekend as we are together here. This is the 15th annual Unrig Summit. Wait a minute. Let's check that. This is the first ever gathering of democracy advocates together. Now, I've been in this world for 20 years. I've never seen anything like it, and I think we got to go back to 1776 in some cases before there's anything like this before. One quick note, just as we're striving toward a more perfect union for America, we're also striving towards more perfect Unrig conferences in the future. So please be sure to open up your mobile apps, fill out the survey, you might also see it in your email, and tell us what we can do better next time around. I'd like to remix a quick quote from John Gardner, who was the founder of Common Cause. He said, "At the time this nation was formed, the US population was about 3 million people. And from that 3 million, we produced 6 world-class leaders that changed the course of human civilization: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Franklin, and Hamilton. Today, our population stands at 300 million people, over 300 million people. So you might expect there's over 100 times as many leaders. And since the days of the Founding Fathers, now people of color and women finally have a leadership seat at the table." So by my math, there's 1,500 such caliber leaders out there in the world today. 1,500 Washingtons, Jeffersons, Adams, Madison, Hamilton, and Franklins out there. And I think it's no cosmic coincidence that 1,500 people registered for the Unrig conference. So, at this critical juncture, I think it's clear that everybody here is actually the heirs to the dynasty of the Founding Fathers. And you here in this room at this moment have answered the call. And that gives me chills that we're sitting here together at this moment changing history. So thank you so much for being part of this this democracy movement going forward. Our first speaker is a nationally recognized civil rights attorney who currently serves as the president and general counsel of the Mexican American Defense and Education Fund. He returned to Maldiv, where he conducted civil rights litigation for over a decade. After 4 years as counsel to Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, please welcome Thomas Saenz.
Good morning. Thank you, Todd, for that generous introduction. For those of you who are not familiar with Maldiv, we are a now 50-year-old national civil rights organization whose mission is to promote the civil rights of all Latinos living in the United States. We were founded in 1968 in San Antonio, Texas, and in the last half-century have worked through the legal system to promote the rights of Latinos and everyone in America in the areas of education, employment, immigrant rights, and voting rights. Voting has been central to the last half-century's work as we have struggled through the decades to ensure initially that Latinos were not completely excluded from participation in the electoral system, meaningful participation, meaning translating into folks they actually supported being in office, and in more recent decades, fighting against those who would deter or even prevent the ascendance to power of more and more Latinos in local and state communities across the country. Indeed, throughout our history, we have had to fight against redistricting schemes that violate the rights of Latinos from state to state. Often the state of Texas, where we were founded, where we have had to litigate against redistricting once, and in the last 2 decades, twice each decade to ensure that Latinos received the representation to which they are entitled. For example, this last decade, when Texas was the big winner in the reapportionment lottery following the census, gaining 4 congressional seats, 60% of the population growth of the state that resulted in those 4 seats came from the Latino community. Yet the Texas legislature, in its initial maps adopted in 2011, allocated exactly 0 of those 4 new seats to the Latino community. It's that kind of structural process, structural discrimination that we have fought against over the years. More recently, for example, following the Supreme Court's abhorrent decision in Shelby County, preventing the continued use of the powerful preclearance mechanism of the Voting Rights Act, we had to sue the city of Pasadena, Texas, which decided to switch from 8 districted city council seats to 6 districted seats and 2 at-large. The sole reason the mayor proposed and then secured the adoption of that change was to prevent the ascendant Latino community, already a majority of the population, from electing a majority of the city council. Despite victory in that case, we still today face an additional proposal very similar to that in Pasadena out of Odessa, Texas. So we understand at MALDEF very clearly the importance of structures of elections, structures of democratic participation, and how they can be used against minority communities. We also understand how changes in those structures can benefit all of us, including minority communities. MALDEF is proud to have been a co-sponsor of the landmark California Voting Rights Act, enacted some decade and a half ago, that has already resulted in dozens of local bodies, city councils, school districts, community college districts, special districts, switching from at-large elections to districted elections that ensure that communities that never had someone residing in them now have a resident on the city council, on the school board, ensuring that minority communities are heard and represented on city councils and school boards. So MALDEF is very pleased. So I, as president of MALDEF, am very pleased to have been here for this first Unrig Summit, working with all of you, dialoguing with all of you, looking forward to collaborating with all of you at changing electoral structures that limit participation of minorities and others and do not live up to the full promise of our Constitution. I want to close by saying one thing that maybe has not been said. But in the course of our work, we have also concluded at MALDEF that sometimes ensuring that electoral processes work means reducing the amount of offices that we vote for. Yes, I think that there are too many elections in a long and complicated ballot. Too many voters are not able to become informed voters in making decisions, and we should work to eliminate the elections applied to certain positions. First on that list is judges. In my home state of California, and across the country, too often voters are asked to vote on judges about whom they know nothing. So we've seen examples of judges voted out by lawyers with no experience. Why? Because the judge had a foreign-sounding name and the challenger had a quintessentially American name. But I want to end by adding one more to that list where we should reconsider, in my view, popular elections, and that is the office of sheriff. Too often we have seen folks like Joe Arpaio, folks in California like Donnie Youngblood and Scott Jones, who have not lived up to what we expect from sheriffs. We have seen police chiefs, by contrast, who may not be perfect, but are held accountable by elected officials on city councils and mayors, and seem to do a better job of actually living up to what they need to do. So I end by saying thank you for allowing us to participate. We look forward to working with all of you on exploring new electoral structures to ensure democratic participation for all, and I hope that that includes looking at the kinds of offices that we should vote for and those that we should not. Thank you.
Our next speaker entered the national political scene in 2014 when he jump-started the campaign that would unseat U.S. Majority Leader Eric Cantor in one of the most unprecedented upsets in political history. He now serves as the executive director of Take Back Our Republic. Please welcome John Pudner.
Hey, our question today is, can we unrig the system in 2018? We need the long-term vision, and I'm sorry, I just came out from my faith tradition, 2 hours of church, apologize. African-American Catholic Church choir has been nominated for Grammys, and the message we've got here is, yes, we have to have a vision. And what is our vision? I want to focus. Our vision can't be on scoring points or on winning a red state over a blue state or getting credit. I think our vision has to be that Americans trust the integrity of every election, and they trust that every official who's elected is more focused on them than on some special interest from out of state. That's the vision. Let's start, Tom. So can we unrig the system in 2018? Well, I've also got a examination of conscience I do in my faith tradition, and one of the points I'm supposed to ask myself every night is, did I put off anything I could have done today until tomorrow, which is the same as not doing it at all? I want to ask the same thing on 2018. Is there anything we can do in 2018 that we don't need to put off for long term? And let's look at one thing we just accomplished in 2017. Nick Penniman and Issue 1 and others have great reforms on reforming the Federal Elections Commission so we actually have a body that can enforce laws, because if there's no enforcement, no one's ever going to take this seriously. But we don't want to wait for the ultimate solution, which may come. So we realized we had an opportunity last month to actually get the FEC to vote on something so that it wouldn't be a foregone conclusion they will never enforce anything you do. And we got this bright idea. Democrats all hate the Russians. Conservatives all hate Facebook. Let's ask the FEC to say Facebook can't keep doing secret ads from people, whether that be Russians or anyone else. We won a vote in the FEC. This is groundbreaking. So what can we do now? I hear, well, the people are invested in the system. In this room, we're all invested, but elected officials are invested in the system that got them elected. Well, sometimes you work around the officials. That's why we're going to go back into South Dakota where we won and win a referenda there, so that you can't get unlimited secret gifts and contributions without telling anyone to an elected official and then bid on $250 million in road projects because you have 9 asphalt plants that surround the state, even though you live in Wichita, Kansas. You can't do that anymore. At least let the voters know. Voters have the right to know. So we can go the referenda route. Sometimes we go around the officials. Don't give up on officials. We have great groups looking for a Fix-It America amendment that would end gerrymandering and establish that state legislatures and Congress can put laws into place to stop corruption, that there is a right to free speech, but no speech is unlimited. And if I'd already given $1 billion in the political system, you are not abridging my right to say I can't give a second billion. This is absurd. We needed a Fix-It America amendment. And we're going in New Hampshire where they have 3,400 residents. And a few weeks ago, we made sure 20 key Republicans all got calls from 5 to 10 Republicans in their district. They only represent 3,400 people. Don't give up on electeds. It's like a referenda. If they feel like people are locked in, people will make decisions, then you can move things through legislatures too. We can do that in 2018. Don't put that off until tomorrow and say, well, an amendment will take 20 years. We can start this in 2018. I just want to refer back to Eric Cantor. Everyone refers to the one moment where they, someone stuck them on TV for a minute. But the important thing wasn't on TV there. The important thing was when Eric Cantor had $5 million and we had 18,000, we had 200 people knocking on doors. Whether or not I'd been involved in that or anyone else, people got to a point where they said, we aren't waiting. We are changing this today in 2014. We cannot go on. The message has to be sent to the system that you have got to represent the people in your district, and if you're spending more time out of state than in your district talking to voters, you're going to lose. Let's go out and win this battle and unrig the system in 2018. Thank you.
Tiffany Muller is president and executive director at End Citizens United, where she recently worked to lead the organization to elect 15 new champions of electoral reform across the nation. She was the first openly gay elected official in the state of Kansas and has served as chief of staff to 2 members of Congress. Please welcome Tiffany Muller.
Thank you, Todd. And let's hear it again for Represent Us and this Unrig the Summit system. The work that Represent Us is doing and that Josh Silver is leading his team is just really inspiring. And this weekend has been incredible for me and my team at End Citizens United. We can't wait to take back home the skills that we've learned here and put them to work electing new champions of campaign finance reform. Everyone understands the gigantic scope of the problem before us. We've talked about that all weekend. But like Elisa said, I sense a wave is coming. And part of that is because I look out at the crowd here, those of you I can see, and there are hundreds and hundreds of leaders in this room. And yet I know that there are millions and millions of people behind us, grassroots activists across the country who are giving $5, $10, making phone calls, writing letters to the editor, who are ready to stand with us day in and day out to finally take our democracy back. This is unstoppable enthusiasm. And so let's put it to work, right? Like, let's ride that wave. 3 years ago, In Citizens United didn't even exist. Now we have over 3 million members and are completely fueled by grassroots donors with an average contribution of just $14. This is real change and real momentum. These donors are not only behind us, but they're also leading the way. They're showing candidates and elected officials that there's an alternative to just those who write the biggest check having the biggest say. We can have a different system. They're fired up, and so am I. They're giving candidates the resources to fight back against outside special interests who come in and try to buy elections. Senator Bernie Sanders knows this. Congressman Beto O'Rourke knows this. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who you'll hear from in a little bit, knows this. They're giving them the freedom to actually represent their constituents, and isn't that what this is all about? Candidates across the country are taking note, too. This isn't just about what's happening on the grassroots level. This is about the change that we're seeing. We've already seen more than 50 candidates say they won't take any money from corporate special interest. 50 who are running for Congress. That's amazing. That's a wave. And it'll be hard work, but I'm convinced with everyone here in this room that we can do it. I thank each and every one of you for your leadership, and I'm honored to do this work with you. When you leave this summit, I hope you take the ideas and the relationships you've built and you arm yourself to get out and get up and go to work tomorrow and keep fighting this fight. Let's use them to really hold our elected officials accountable. Let's bring real transparency to our system. Let's finally end Citizens United. And let's unrig the system.
We all know that to truly unrig our democracy, it's going to take a lot more than talk. It's going to require all of us to work together. That's why we invited the Mobilization Lab to facilitate a campaign design lab. Dozens of you kicked off the weekend, generating hundreds and hundreds of creative ideas to address a challenge that you helped select in advance, a challenge you're going to find out about momentarily. Here are a couple stories of 2 groups who are excited to take their ideas to the next level.
This all started off with a bunch of people from different places around a big table and an empty sheet of paper, and the question, how might we make money in politics and democracy reform a hallmark issue of the next election? We came up with a messaging campaign that we wanted to bring to a website.
We wanted to bridge the gap between yelling at the internet and action, using vignettes of short images to elicit an emotional response. We tested in the field and we adjusted based on the feedback. In the end, we called it Unlock the System. You are the key. But how do you translate that to real life?
Here's one example of what you find on unlockingthesystem.com. We have identified a half dozen women who have had problems with the Louisiana Family Court system. This platform provides a way for them to share their stories and inspire others to act. It's all a way to
unlock
the system.
This all started off with a bunch of people.
I'm Dr. Mike Ham. In 2012, I ran for Congress in the I'm Dr. Mike Ham. In 2012, I ran for Congress in the great state of New Mexico. I'd never run a campaign before, and I made a lot of mistakes. When I got to Unrig the System, I found a great group of people who were trying to develop a tool that would help candidates like me, who aren't millionaires, run and make fewer mistakes.
Hi, I'm Kate from New Hampshire, and I'm preparing to run for U.S. Congress in District 1. I'm running to Unrig the System, and I'm starting from scratch. I want to understand how to run, and time is of the essence. This resource is exactly what I need.
We began on Friday with a design lab that was focused on how to make democracy reform the hallmark issue of 2018. we focused on an open source toolkit of guides and resources tailored towards running an unrigged campaign. Saturday, we prototyped our idea and took it to the summit. We used the feedback and found out people wanted resources and information to help them succeed, and organizations wanted to share their hard-earned knowledge.
More of that, please. You'll get to see a little more as I introduce our two next speakers, grassroots activists who've helped join the fight to tackle political corruption in their own communities. Morgan is a California Bay Area native who works in venture capital as her day job, but she volunteered with Represent Us back in 2015, co-founding the San Francisco chapter. Carl is a CEO and computer systems engineer of a startup in Phoenix, the Deeply Digital Incorporation. He's currently has leadership roles in his state's Green Party, the Arizona Sustainability Alliance, and of course, Represent Us. Please welcome from Represent Us San Francisco, Morgan Atkin-Young, and from Represent Arizona, Carl Parrish.
So before we get started, we just wanted to do a really quick thank you to the Represent Us team for making this possible. So a quick round of applause for you guys. So I'm Morgan Atkin-Young. I co-founded and currently lead the San Francisco chapter of Represent Us. And I'm just going to quickly tell you guys why I got involved in this fight, how a group of people who had almost no political experience got something on the ballot and won, and why it's so important that we all do what we can where we are right now. So my story starts with the Represent Us solution video, where they talk about going around Congress and passing anti-corruption acts in cities and states. So who's seen that video? A lot of people in the room, yeah. So before I'd seen this video, I knew that money in politics was a problem, but I had no idea how to fix it. And suddenly I had not only a solution with these comprehensive reforms, but I also had a strategy that didn't rely on politicians in Washington. It relied on me going out in my community. And I'd seen the strategy work before with marriage equality. I have two moms who thought that they would never see marriage equality in their lifetime, and it was this exact strategy that became an unstoppable wave of both cultural change and policy change. And so when I saw the video, I had to get to work right away because I could make tangible change locally and simultaneously be a part of this incredible national movement. So long story short, when we got started, we had no idea what we were doing. A lot of our members had never voted before, didn't know who their elected officials were, and we had no idea how city law was enacted at the city level. We spent the first 6 months just researching, talking to as many people as we could who were already doing this, and we built a coalition who were willing to stand up to San Francisco lobbyists. And while we did have some policy experts in our crew, most of us were just volunteers with day jobs. And I'll never forget the night that the Ethics Commission put our measure on the ballot, one of the commissioners thanked us for getting involved in our democracy and for bringing the voice of the average citizen and common sense to call out corruption and make it illegal. And that's what we did. We got something on the ballot, ran a local campaign on a shoestring budget and lots of volunteer hours. And it not only passed, it passed with the highest margin of victory in 20 years. Thank you. And it was this margin, 87% in support, that reminded me that no matter what your politics are, this maybe was the only bipartisan agreement in 2016, frustration with the political system. And that's why it's so important that we all go back to our communities and act now, because until we fix those communities, there's really no hope of fixing Washington. So I'll just leave you with the 3 things that we learned from this adventure. The first is that until we fix this issue, nothing else really matters. As long as our political and democratic outcomes can be bought, what else are we doing? So the second thing is that with all this partisanship, the most invigorating and unifying thing you can do is work on something that affects every single issue. And finally, we learned that change is possible. We don't have to wait for an election and hope the elected official does what we hope they'll do. We don't have to be professionals. We don't have to be activists and lobbyists. We just have to show up together and work towards a vision of a democracy that works for all of us, not just the richest among us. And I know that we're all going to take this back to our communities, and I'll see you when we win nationally together. Thank you.
So my book on public speaking says that you're always supposed to start with a joke. I only have a couple of minutes here, so as an engineer, I wanted to tell the most effective joke possible. Put a lot of thought into it, and I, broke down the components of what a joke is. And ultimately, I came to the decision that the most effective thing to do is just to say, laugh now. Very generous audience, but there's a reason why engineers probably shouldn't tell jokes. So, but notice how jumping to my desired outcome, having you all laugh, without actually going through the process of telling the joke, is somewhat less satisfying. As social activists, I think oftentimes we make the same mistake of wanting to jump to our desired, we have this desired outcome that we want, and so we don't value the process of what it takes to get there. The process of learning how to get people to sign petitions, listening to people, the process of learning how to lobby and listening to people, the process of recruiting and listening to people. Do you notice a trend there? Leads to a more satisfying conclusion at the end. Things like this, Unrig, where we can get together, where we can learn together, where we can go through the process together, where we have people to support us. This is important. This matters. It matters at least as much as the end results of the results that we want. In that light, I want to tell you a little bit about the process that I went through to get here. So, I've been very blessed. Still, in my pursuit of the American dream, I faced certain challenges. Things didn't always work the way that I was told that the American dream is supposed to work. One day, just like many of you who raised your hand said, I was watching a YouTube video. I saw the problem video and realized all of my fears about the distinction between how the system is supposed to work versus how it actually works are actually true. So, I'm not the kind of person who can have that kind of insight and not take action. So I joined RepresentUs. Later, I started a chapter. We had, we learned how to do lobbying. We learned how to go talk to people. Out of those conversations, eventually, our city council unanimously decided, yes, we want to put your ballot up for a vote. Unanimously. This was something that I thought was going to be a huge struggle, but because I had a support system building me up, it wasn't. Things like this matter. So, we're coming close to the end of my time. I want to get to my ask real quick. If you have a RepresentUs chapter near you, please join. People like me need you for our sanity. If there's not a RepresentUs chapter near you, think about starting one. We have an amazing support system here. I'm part of that support system, and I'm happy to help. But the amazing people who put this conference on do a great job, amazing job, of walking you step by step on how you can make a difference in the world. So, real quick, I'm going to do the find the people who think like you, walk with them. Find the people who don't think like you, listen to them. Changing the world is easy. Making the world better, that takes intention. Namaste.
Nick Penniman is president and CEO of Issue 1. Previously, he founded and led the Huffington Post Investigative Fund, as well as many other media and democracy projects. Please welcome Nick Penniman.
Thank you all very much. I do want to thank the Represent Us team for this. This is extraordinary. Josh and I have been collaborating for a while, and years ago when we started working together, he said, man, we got to hold a big conference. And I said, what, like 500 people, 300 people? He's like, yeah, that sounds good. Well, guys, this started, we share staff with the Represent Us folks in Washington. This started at 500 people, and then I would talk to them a couple weeks later. They're like, yeah, we're at about 800 now. A couple weeks later, 1,000. 1,500 people, folks. This is amazing. This is amazing. Now, the other Josh that I got to point to here is this guy, Josh Lynn. This guy is a volcano of creative energy. He is a marketing genius. He's the reason why you're wearing yellow and black, okay? If not for him, this cause would not be as cool as it's becoming, as culturally cool as it's becoming. So we owe a great debt of gratitude to this guy right here. So I'm going to be a little bit old school because I wrote something down. To prove how old I am, by the way, I was sitting down there with my legs crossed, and the one that was crossed fell asleep while I was sitting. This is what happens in middle age. Guys, this is our moment, okay? This is our moment. We are just crossed the threshold from being a group of people who care a lot about these process issues into the spotlight. Marshall McLuhan, back in the 1960s, coined the phrase, the medium is the message. Right now, folks, the system is the subject. The system is the subject. And that is exactly what we're focused on. It's as if all of a sudden the collective American mind is shifting from the most famous sentence in the Declaration of Independence to the next one. You guys know all the most famous one is, right? The life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Who knows the next one? Anyone? You got it. So that's the first half of the next sentence. This was, by the way, this was Jefferson abusing the semicolon. Because the sentence goes on, that whenever any... Yes? Alter or abolish it, and institute new government laying its foundation and principles, organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and their happiness. He's a walking Google. Imagine if he was your dad. It'd be so discouraging. It'd just be like... So there it is, guys. Embedded in that second long sentence after the one about the pursuit of happiness is perhaps the greatest American right of all. The greatest American right of all. When any form of government becomes destructive, it is our right to alter it or abolish it. To alter it, folks. That's what we're talking about right now. We might get to the point in 10 or 15 years where we get to the abolish part, but let's focus on the alter part for right now. That is as much a part of the American creed as so many of the freedoms that we so often enumerate. Remember, the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The Constitution is about giving us the right to a democratic republic. And right now, folks, it's not just that we are entering the threshold onto the national stage. The stakes are higher than that. We're entering onto the global stage. And the reason why is because I believe that we are entering a period of American history in which there is going to be an intense standoff between authoritarianism and democracy. When Josh and I were getting out of college, you guys will remember it was, well, some of you don't necessarily remember. You were like kids then. But when I was getting out of college, it was, this guy, Francis Fukuyama, had come out with this book, The End of History. And what it posited was that, not that the world was going to end, but that we were done sorting through the political and economic models that would guide humanity. That capitalism and democracy were the victors, the Berlin Wall was coming down, the Soviet Union was cracking up, capitalism and democracy were the twin sisters, and they were going to march forward and take over history. There was no question in most people's minds, Americans' minds in the early 90s, that that was the case. That, as we all know, as we can all feel in our bones, and as we see on the television set, that is no longer the case. Oppressive regimes, authoritarian regimes are taking over. There's a backsliding. We have been in a decade now, according to Freedom House, a decade now of a democracy recession. And when we see countries like China and Russia consolidating political, geographic, and money power as quickly as they are and oppressing their citizens at the same time, guys, this is a big fight. For those of you who are Rocky fans, you'll remember in Rocky IV, he fought this guy named Ivan Drago, who was the stoic, badass Russian. That's where we are, folks. It is us versus Ivan Drago, and we got to win, and you all are Rocky, okay? So let me say one more thing. This is serious stuff. This is getting really serious in a good way. I would also say that this is a proud burden of being American. This is a proud burden that we have of being Americans. In many other democracies, they don't sit around and do what we're doing. They don't feel the burden of carrying the torch of democracy like we do here. This is what we do in this country, and this burden was baked in from the get-go of our country. One of my favorite Thomas Paine lines from Common Sense, and by the way, Common Sense, I don't know if you guys know this, Common Sense outsold the Bible during the Revolutionary War. It outsold the Bible during the Revolutionary War. Here's a great Tom Paine line. The cause of America is indeed, in great measure, the cause of all humankind. Many circumstances have and will arise which are not local but universal, and through which the principles of all lovers of humanity are affected. Guys, our cause is universal. This is a universal moment. And in addition to the many great groups here and the grassroots supporters that you all have, this fight is being enjoined at the top. This is another sign that things are getting serious, that this is a great moment. We at Issue 1 have recruited almost 200 former members of Congress to join this fight. This is not just a paper tiger group. These people work for us. They do a lot of stuff for us. Let me just give you some of the names because they couldn't be here, but they are with us, okay? Some surprising names. In addition to Zach Wamp. By the way, does everyone love Zach Wamp? Here's some other names, guys. Former Congressman and Ambassador to India, Tim Romer. The former Republican head of the CIA, Porter Goss. The former Democratic head of the CIA, Leon Panetta. The former head of Homeland Security, Tom Ridge, a Republican governor. Former Congressman and head of Department of Agriculture, Dan Glickman. No booze? No booze. How about Deval Patrick, governor of Democrat, governor, Massachusetts? Yeah, there we go. Of course. Connie Morella, a Republican? No? Okay. She's okay. Sue Myrick, she was the head of the Republican Study Group in Congress, very conservative woman from North Carolina. Anyone? No? Maybe? Okay. All right, the list goes on and on. Lions of the Senate like Jack Danforth, Dick Lugar, Olympia Snowe. We also have been recruiting generals recently who understand that America's national security, that the greatest risk to our national security right now is the breakdown of our democracy. So we have worked with Generals Jim Jones and the former head of the Army, John McHugh, who are standing up and saying, if we don't get our democracy right, our national security is at risk. So a lot of those folks are formers, but you're about to hear from some current members. There is great leadership emerging on Capitol Hill. Back in October, a caucus was formed, bipartisan caucus on the House side. It now has 22 members in it, 11 Republicans, 11 Democrats. It is the first ever bipartisan caucus dedicated to our issues, guys. This is serious stuff, okay? This is happening on the Hill. So let me leave you with this. Martin Luther King once said to his troops, when all of a sudden things were getting serious for them too, getting serious for them in a good way, like they're getting serious for us right now, he said, quote, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action." Folks, tomorrow is today. Tomorrow is today, okay? So I have the great honor of passing off the baton to Mike Gallagher. He is one of the co-founders of this caucus on the Hill. He is a really cool dude. Where is he? He's right there. He's a great, okay. Second to youngest member of Congress, former, oh shoot, I was about to say former Marine Corps. I once said that to a Marine, and he grabbed my arm like I was going to break. He said, once you're a Marine, always a Marine. You're never a former Marine. So Marine Corps, Harvard, Georgetown PhD, okay, Green Bay. This guy's amazing. He is the future of this country. He loves our stuff, and he is putting country above party. Mike Gallagher.
I wasn't insulted by the Marine Corps stuff. I was insulted by the suggestion I went to Harvard. I went to Princeton, okay? I want to tell you guys a story. I got to keep this under 10 minutes, I've been told, or under 12 minutes. This is a story about a couch. This is a story about a very ugly green couch in particular. On my second deployment to Iraq, I was stationed at a town on the Syrian border called Al-Qaim. And the day my Marines and I arrived, there was a group of Al-Qaeda operatives that snuck across the Syrian border in the middle of the night, and they were dressed in Iraqi army uniforms, and they slaughtered about 50 people in the local village. It was horrible. It was horrible. And I commanded the intelligence team, and so it was my job, even though I just arrived, to figure out what was going on. I was supposed to know more than anyone else what was going on, and so we turned to it day and night. We started trying to track down the terrorists that had done this. And we knew that some of them had gone back to Syria, but some of them had also hidden in the local population. In particular, we knew there was this one guy who was not only involved in this, but involved in a bunch of other attacks before, who was there in the local village. We knew it. We knew with 99% certainty where he was, the house he was in. And we kept going to the house. We kept interrogating everyone who was there. We kept turning over all the furniture, scouring the whole place inch by inch, and yet we couldn't find this guy. It was not only frustrating, it was embarrassing. For the United States military, with all our technology, all our might, we could not find this one guy. And so, more out of desperation than anything else, I went with some of my Marines to that house one last time, and we started talking to everyone there. We started turning everything over and looking inch by inch, and all the women and the children were in this one room sitting on an ugly green couch. I'll never forget this. And something was up. I started talking to them. Something was going on. I couldn't figure it out. I just thought it was my sort of stilted formal Arabic. But something was going on, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I asked them all to leave the room, and I did something that I'm not proud of. I gave up. I sat down on that ugly green couch, and I put my head in my hands, and I just started like swearing in English and Arabic and some language I just made up on the spot in anger. And I thought I'd failed, right? I'm sitting there. I couldn't even do my job. This was my job to figure it out, and I couldn't do it, right? So we apologized to everyone. My Marines and I left, and as we were about to leave the village, we got a call from this guy that we knew who lived there. And he started screaming, "He's in the couch! He's in the couch!" I said, there's nothing on the couch. I was just there. He's like, no, he's in the couch. I'm like, what? There's nothing on the couch. And so for the next 5 minutes, I was engaged in sort of a bizarre Iraqi version of Who's On First. Like, he's on the couch. He's in the couch. But sure enough, that bastard was in the couch. You see, we failed to notice that there was a secret compartment in the side of the couch. And every time we went there, this guy hid in that couch. And even though we flipped it upside down, he didn't make a sound, and we didn't notice the panel that you could remove and get inside that couch. And so we got the guy eventually, and all the after-action reports sort of conveniently failed to mention the fact that I had been sitting on said couch just before. I bring this up. George Orwell once said that to see what is in front of one's nose needs a constant struggle. Put differently, to see what's inside the big, green, ugly couch that you're sitting on is hard, right? And we all got them. We all got green couches, conservatives, liberals. We got long-held beliefs or bits of groupthink that are wrong, quite frankly. We have lazily held assumptions that we don't want to burn calories re-examining. That's what's been awesome about this conference. That's why I came, right? Because you guys have forced me to challenge like all my stupid little ugly green couches that I have, right? Whether it's on gerrymandering or Citizens United. Man, I just heard about that judge and sheriff election thing. Now I have to go back and research that. That made too much sense to me. And I thank you for that. That's amazing. We need to do more of that. And but at the risk of being a buzzkill, I want to push back a little bit, all right? I want to say something potentially unpopular. But let's face it, I'm the token conservative. It's my job to be the buzzkill. Don't be fooled by the fact that I wear untucked shirts. I'm not cool. I want to challenge the premise a little bit, right? So I think we're all sitting on a big, ugly green couch right now. We're all here because we know there's something wrong with our government. And we feel like we have all the tools we need to figure that out and fix it, right? But we just can't quite find it, right? So we go to the house, we create a ruckus, we flip everything over, but it's not there. And so we go and we sit on the big green couch and we say the system is rigged, right? The system is rigged. But what if those 4 words are concealing something beneath that, right? What if there's something else going on? Because after all, while Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders may have popularized that phrase initially, no one has deployed it more effectively than Donald Trump, right? He just gave a speech in Pensacola where he said the system is rigged like 1,000 times. And my concern is that if you allow that to give you an excuse for not conducting some introspection or assuming some responsibility, then it could be dangerous, right? It could be dangerous when Donald Trump says it. It could be dangerous when Elizabeth Warren says it. It could be dangerous when Mike Gallagher says it. It could be dangerous when Jennifer Lawrence says it. I just wanted to say my name in the same sentence as Jennifer Lawrence. But, sorry, I had to do that. What I'm trying to say is that while our system is imperfect in so many ways, right? It can be unfair. It can be manipulated and abused by charlatans on both sides. My God, the system is so fragile. It's America. It's amazing we're still surviving as a country. And it's going to take all of your good ideas and all the good people in this room to ensure that it continues to survive. But to say that it's rigged, I worry, implies something deeper, right? It implies that we have we don't owe the system anything. That we don't have to abide by certain norms and rules of the system, that we can create convenient end runs around the system that will just get us to our preferred policy preference faster than the other guy, or that we can indulge in our worst instincts about the other side. And I worry a bit about that, particularly in the current environment, because I suspect that the system in some way, is reflecting, it's doing what it's always done. It's reflecting broader trends in our society, right? And our society is incredibly divided. And when the country's divided, sometimes the system is meant to move slow. Legislation is supposed to fail in Congress. That's a feature, not a bug of the system. So that gridlock, that's frustrating, and I know it's frustrating. I see the problems. I want to solve it and go home to my previous life, right? But that dysfunction, I think, is downstream from broader societal dysfunction. That fracturing in D.C. is downstream from fracturing that we see in our own communities, right? That vitriol that you see politicians spew every day on cable news, it's downstream from the vitriol that we spew on social media every single day. And I'm not suggesting in any way that the reforms you're talking about are not important. They are, oh my gosh, and I stand ready to work with you and take risk politically in order to do so. But I just wonder if the best way to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. is to build dams and levees way upstream in our own communities, in our own lives, right? In the systems that should be more important to us, our families, our communities. The best way to unrig the system, I think, is probably just to start with ourselves, with our own conduct, how we engage with other people on social media or IRL, as the kids say. And I've been so excited about how you guys have engaged with me, right? You haven't treated me with hostility, maybe sometimes like a zoo animal, like what's a Republican doing here? I mean, did he lose his way? But it's been awesome, and I've learned so much. Because at the end of the day, I'm not saying that the system asks us to be perfect, right? The system's built on a recognition that we are so far from perfect, that we all have big, ugly green couches that we sit on, even though we know we shouldn't. And we just have to step back from time to time and make sure that that doesn't become a structure to conceal the very danger that we're trying to guard against. Because you may think the system sucks, and I would not have run for office. I wouldn't be here if I didn't agree with you on some level and I didn't think we can do better, that we need to reform. But I've also spent a lot of time in systems that suck way worse than ours, where people would die for just a fraction of what we have in our system, for the privilege of being able to do something like this. And it's made me proud to be an American. And so I just bring up to suggest that I think at the end of the day, I mean, this is the system, right? It's just us trying to figure this whole thing out, trying not to screw it up, trying to leave our little part of the system a little bit better than how we found it. And in that endeavor, we can never give up, and we can never sit on that damn ugly, big, green couch. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
That was well-deserved, Mike. Thank you. Ready yourselves for another one of like caliber. I'm actually going to read this slightly slowly because we pained over every single sentence of this introduction. Carries a whopper, so I want to make sure you pay attention to every sentence. Our final speaker of the summit represented Hawaii's 2nd District since 2013, but has been active in public service far longer. At just 21, she was elected to the Hawaii House of Representatives. I know. She later joined the Hawaii Army National Guard, serving 2 voluntary tours in the Middle East, and has risen to become major in the Army National Guard. That one I really do have. After winning an election to the Honolulu City Council in 2010, she ran for Congress in 2012 and became the body's first Hindu member and one of the first female combat veterans to ever serve in Congress. She was vice chair of the Democratic National Committee from 2013 to 2016 and has since become an outspoken advocate for reforming said institution. Please welcome Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
Aloha. Aloha. Mahalo. I hope you say that at the end. Just wait for it. It's been wonderful to be here with you all this weekend. Like everyone, I want to thank Represent Us for your leadership in bringing us all together in hosting this important summit, one of which I hope is the first of many to come in the future. The dialogue and the debate and the conversations that I've heard happening around me throughout this weekend in different rooms and different places gives me hope. It gives me inspiration. I'm leaving this weekend pumped up as we head back to Washington because there are very clear tasks, there are clear courses of action, and most importantly, there is a clear sense of vision coming from all of you, people who come from all different parts of the country, different backgrounds, different political persuasions, different ideologies, but coming together with one heart, with one vision and one goal. How can we work together to better serve the people of this country and to protect our planet? In Hawaii, we call this Aloha. We call this convening Aloha. And for those of you who've been to Hawaii before, you know, you come down the stairs at the airport and you see Aloha on the sign. It says, "Welcome to Hawaii." You know, aloha is a way that we say hello and goodbye, but there is a much more powerful meaning to this word. A word that has the power to change the world. Because when I aloha you, what I'm saying is that I'm coming to you with an open heart. I'm coming to you with respect, with care, and with love, and a recognition that we are all connected, that we are all neighbors. We are all in this together, and that my actions impact yours and yours mine, and that if we have any hope of working towards a better life for each other, for future generations, for our planet, we can only do so together. The challenges that we face are great in this country, in our political system, and in the world, and it is only through this spirit of aloha, this recognition of our interconnectedness, and this desire to work together that we can truly find solutions. In my spiritual practice, Vaishnava Hinduism, we call this karma yoga, where you take action, you take the skills and talents and tools and training that each of us has, coming from different places and different backgrounds, and seeing how can I best dedicate those skills, my time, my energy, and my life, working towards the well-being of others, not for selfish gain, but to actually help serve others, to actually take action to protect our planet. If we don't do this, when we examine the ills within our society, when we examine the pain and suffering in the world, we can attribute it back to this lack of servant leadership, this lack of care in action for others, and the people suffer as a result. Our planet suffers as a result. During my first deployment to Iraq, it was 2004. We were at our camp for only a couple of days, and I was walking through the camp, orienting myself and seeing where everything was, and I noticed immediately there was a big sign next to the main gate that had a lot of the patrols going in and out every day. And in that sign, in big block letters, it said, "Is today the day?" I stopped for a moment and looked at that. And that sign and that moment of reflection stuck with me every day because it was a constant reminder that our time could come at any moment. The fragility of life. And the question that follows is, am I making the most of the time that I've been given? Now, when you're serving in a combat zone that has a very different sense of reality, but it is just as an important question for us here today as it was for us there. Our time could come at any moment. So what are we doing with our lives? What are we doing with the time that we've been given to serve others, to make that positive impact? It's so easy in this day and age, not only to get caught up in the busyness of life, but with social media and all of the other things that are happening, to get caught up in the divisiveness, in the negativity, the hatred, the vitriol, and this idea that if you disagree with me, then therefore you are my enemy. You are my opponent and I must defeat you. This pitting of us versus them, whether it be based on different political ideologies, different races, different religious beliefs, all of the things that make us unique as a people, as a country. And we can only look to the news to see how dangerous this path is that we're on. And that's the challenge before us. As Mike was talking about, every one of us individually, starting with ourselves in our daily lives, to stop the darkness and the hatred and the negativity and make that conscious choice in our own lives, in our own relationships, in our actions, to choose love. Choose aloha. Choose to take action so that light can defeat that darkness. You know, so many of the things that we've been talking about here can sometimes seem a bit complex. Figuring strategies and training and how are we going to do this, how are we going to accomplish it, but so much of this just comes down to people. Relationships. How we treat each other. If you're able to build those relationships, then you're able to have a debate, have a conversation that is based on respect, that allows us to disagree without being disagreeable, and that allows us to find common ground. There are a lot of ways to do this. One piece of advice I was given before I was sworn in as a member of Congress the first year by a former member from Hawaii. He said, Tulsi, when you go to Congress, it's important to make friends. Best place you can do that is by going to the gym. Mike and I became friends because we go to the gym at 6:30 in the morning when we are at our rawest, most human state. And there's a group of us, bipartisan group of members of Congress. We go early in the morning, and we've established friendships and relationships built on that time that we spend together, kicking each other's butts, pushing each other early in the morning. But it turns into something bigger than that. It was one of those mornings that I talked to Mike about coming here to Unrig, saying, hey, man, let's do it. Another thing that I did when I first got to Congress as a new member of Congress in the minority coming from a small state, I thought, okay, what's one of the things that makes people most happy? Culturally, I think not exclusive to Hawaii, is food. So I called my mother. She makes this incredible macadamia nut toffee. And I asked her sweetly if she would make 434 boxes of toffee. My mom is a mom of 5 rambunctious kids, and so it didn't take her much to say, yeah, I think that's a great idea, sure. And I said, I'm not done. Can you make another 434 boxes of toffee for the staff of every member of Congress? And she said, well, that might take me a little bit longer, but yes, I'm in. And so as she was doing that in Hawaii, stirring these 2 pots simultaneously, pouring, cutting, and wrapping this toffee, I was learning more about each of my new colleagues, handwriting notes to each of them, introducing myself and letting them know that I looked forward to working with them. And it was incredible to see how quickly, after we delivered these little gifts of aloha to my hundreds of new friends and colleagues, on the House floor during votes, which is the only time when we're really all together in one place, I started to see senior Republicans, chairmen of important committees, making that long walk from the Republican side to the Democratic side, finding me and saying, thank you so much, it was delicious. I ate it all, so I need more for my spouse at home. And then most importantly, saying, tell me what's going on in Hawaii. Tell me how, as the chairman of transportation or armed services or this committee or that committee, tell me how I can be helpful in your service to the people in your district. So that began a relationship that has proven time and again, when those important issues come up, that I can get people to answer the phone when I call. That if they have questions on a bill that I'm pushing for on the House floor that seems doomed for failure because it is deemed a partisan bill when it's not, they say, Tulsi, tell me why this is important. I win some of them over, others make a different choice, but it has allowed me to be effective for my constituents, to be able to serve them better, all out of a basic, simple act of kindness, aloha, and respect. This hyper-partisanship that we are seeing now is getting in the way of doing the people's work, our mission of serving the people. There are so many issues where we can find common ground. It's a long list. Obviously, what we're gathered here for today is a critical one. Criminal justice reform that's breaking up families all across the country, ending the federal marijuana prohibition, affordable housing, strengthening infrastructure, protecting civil liberties, fighting for peace, ending our counterproductive regime change wars overseas, and taking those dollars and investing them right here in our communities here at home. These are all issues that impact our families, our neighbors, and our communities every single day. These are all issues that currently have bipartisan support. There is so much potential and opportunity if we can get past the divisiveness, find this common ground, and work together. The answer is love. The answer is aloha. Because it is love that opens our eyes to see that every hungry child is our child, that every person seeking the dignity of a job is our neighbor, that every senior citizen in need is our parent. And that when any one of us is attacked because of race, religion, sexual orientation, or anything else, is an attack on each one of us. The answer lies in love, because it is when we care for each other, choosing that inclusion and love over divisiveness and hatred, only then is our country at its greatest. The obstacles may seem overwhelming at times. The task is great before us. It is in those moments that I find inspiration from one of my favorite quotes from Mahatma Gandhi, that when a small group of determined spirits who are fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission, they can alter the course of history. So I urge you to draw strength and courage from love and aloha, and remember that in our movement that is fueled by love, inspired by aloha, we can never be stopped or defeated. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your activism, your faith, and your dedication to this mission. Aloha. Mahalo.
How about that? I think I see a presidential ticket there. These two. Who thinks they should be the next presidential ticket? Hey, folks, I just want to thank you. This is going to take just 2 minutes. I am so honored to our two speakers. I just wish everyone in Congress was like those two. And I want to also thank all the speakers this weekend. Absolutely incredible. And all of you, it's funny, we get a lot of accolades, Graham and I. You guys did such a good job, but the person who actually runs our organization and makes it awesome is Vanessa. Vanessa, come on up.
Thank you. Josh invited me up here about 2 minutes ago. I really want to thank all the people, the hundreds of people. You got it. Whew, it has been a long weekend. You know, this happened at my wedding, too. Same thing. I got so happy. And I was really grateful for all the people who helped us make this happen. As you can see, it means a lot to all of us that you all came here. I want to thank the students of the LBC who changed all the rooms on time and did a great job. I want to thank our incredible security team that made sure that everyone here was safe. And I want to thank the caterers and the bartenders and the bus drivers and every single person who, minute by minute, I kid you not, went above and beyond to make sure that this was an incredible success. So thank you all for being here. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. She's our Chief Operating Officer, and she's awesome. And now, can you bring the lights up and the house lights, please? The biggest thank you of all, the Represent Us staff, everybody on Represent Us staff, please raise your hand. You guys did this. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, turn back around, because I think there may have been a little bit of a misconception. We have been hearing time and again, you guys put on a good show. No, leave the lights on, please, actually, for this. You guys, the staff, all of that. But I really want to make it clear, and I think there's a metaphor here with what Mike was just saying. Like our government is ours, we make it what it is. You guys made this summit what it was. We just were here. Without every single one of you, this is nothing, and this movement is nothing. So thank you for making it amazing. 3 quick questions. Did you have a good summit? Yeah! Number 2, are we going to do this again? Yeah! All right, and I'm going to ask you to stand back up because this third one is actually important. Please stand. Do you promise to leave here and do something about it? Do you promise to leave here and unrig the system? Thank you.
Travel safe, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Please.